So good. All right. Roman, it's time for you. Yeah. So this is our compliance panel, Global Immigration Compliance Obligations for Employers and Employees. Roman Zelichenko is the CEO and co-founder of Laborless. He's going to be kind of moderating, right, in this panel. Laborless is a immigration compliance software, mostly for LCA compliance, automation, great and innovative tool. He's come from New York City, but via Israel. He just reached the other day. So I'm sure there's a story there. He's a reformed immigration attorney, right? Means he was doing regular immigration law, but now does software for the community. And has a great social media following, like Umesh had mentioned. There's so many people that listen to Roman. He's interesting in his, all the things that he does. He's a very, has a lot of interesting hobbies and things that you should follow and see for yourself. It's very cool. But he's been disrupting the immigration situation with software, offering all kinds of tools that will help you. So anyway, as a frequent speaker and a social media influencer, Roman, come on up, por favor. Yeah. I appreciate it. Welcome. All right. Let's see. Meghna, Ravishankar, where are you? Yeah, come on up. Meghna. Woo! Yeah. Nice to have you here. She is group head of enterprise risk management at WePro. And her focus is on compliance and governance with regulatory checks, risk assessment and mitigation, immigration audits, immigration due diligence during mergers and acquisitions. That's something that gets overlooked quite a bit. And implementing controls to monitor regulatory mandates and changes like those that are happening with H-1B modernization and so much more. Rajesh Iyer, where are you? Come on up. Rajesh, welcome. Associate Vice President and Head of Global and HR, Global Immigration at Emphasis. The Senior HR and Resource Management professional. So much of great experience. We're all grateful for you and coming to share with us. Also with Oliver Dsouza and Ravishankar. Come on up. Compliance, take it away.
Yep, hello. Hi, yeah. Hi everybody. Really happy to be here. Thank you for the kind introduction. So we're going to be talking about compliance today. We're going to ask you all a few questions, just a short raise of hands. So, we want to keep you involved. We're going to go and answer some questions sort of as a panel, but again, we want to hear, we have amazing people in the room, and so there will be instances for you all to share some of your thoughts. So we're going to start off with a topic that was touched on today quite a bit, specifically automation and technology, and AI specifically, right, in terms of immigration compliance. So, question for you all before we start with our first question. Do you raise your hand if you feel that you get more or less accurate data and you're confident with the compliance status of your organization? So if you feel confident with your compliance and you feel confident that you're getting good compliance data, raise your hand. Okay, just to be clear, if you're not raising your hand, you do not feel very confident with your compliance. So that's really important. So we're going to start, yes. There were some afterhands. So about half the room. So we're going to start off with a question specifically about how folks here and their organizations are leveraging technology and AI for their compliance. So who wants to start with that? Yeah, go ahead, Meghna.
Of course, I mean, automation, AI is here now, and I think it cannot be separated from the most important aspect of compliance, right, and the function that we work in. And I think compliance by design seems to be the key word. And you can have compliance by design if you knit it into your process flows, you knit it into your automation or the systems that you work with, right? So at our organization, we've put a lot of preventive checks, checks to figure out eligibilities for people trying to apply for visas. We have automations on your entire LCA, PAF programs in the US. We look at registration, deregistrations in the Europe through an automated technology to keep a track. Right? So I think it's pretty key to knit automation, AI into aspects of compliances rather than treating compliance as a post facto, right? Something that you deal with if there's an incident. And then figuring out where did it stem from, what happened, what really transpired, right? So it's good to start upfront, look at preventive controls, look at checks that you can build into your system so that you get a fair idea of where we are placed on that. And I think another important aspect is look at knitting your tools. So all of us use different tools, right? I mean, in mobility, we are dependent on HR for some database, employee database, passport information, dependent informations, right? Then you're dependent on, let's say, your HRSS team for, let's say, your compensation, payroll, right? Executing your payroll, taxations, right? So I don't think many organizations have a end-to-end knitted mobility program. If you do, great, but then you still have teams that hand over or pass over the activities. It's good to look at knitting these systems together because compliances don't sit at just one unit, right? It's also till the very end and you repat the person back and get him back to the home country. I think there needs to be a good tracking, a good mechanism to get all your systems to speak to one another or your tools or workflows to speak to one another to get a seamless process. I think it's important to kind of marry both compliances and automation AIs to a very large extent.
So thanks, Meghna. Just to add to what Meghna said, right? Definitely automation is the need of the hour. So because when we see a lot of compliance-related challenges happening across the organizations and across the globe, it's quite important for us to look immigration or the mobility process just not as a case management tool, right? We need to extend beyond case management and see how it can support our internal compliances, right? So one is that. And second thing is we also need to look at how we can integrate some of the internal systems, be it's H1 wage compliance or whatever it is, how systems can help to kind of distinguish between what wages you have in the system vis-a-vis the LCA wages. So that becomes important. And also when it comes to business visas, how well we kind of ensure that we are not billing, right? Is there a way that we can track and then stop the timesheets, right? Happening whenever people travel on business visas. So those are the things which we need to think beyond a case management tool and ensure that we are compliant at all aspects.
Yeah, so while my colleagues have covered a lot about automation of tools, one important fact is that not only the organization but also mobility team has to be well aware of the AI tools and how to interpret the AI generated responses. It's extremely critical.
So I just wanted to know if Nayak is around. Thank you, sir. So I religiously followed and I'm taking that learning away from Nayak. His direction for me earlier in my days is click, click, click. Right, sir? Click, 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 visa should come. Right? So I'm just adding it further there. Click, 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 you should be able to tell whether you are compliant or not. Right? So now on automation. Automate everything possible that makes sense for you. To the extent that on click of the buttons, you should be able to know, am I compliant on my LCA, PAF, I-9, COC, wage compliance, and record keeping. If the system can tell me in clicks, yes, that is what I want to automate. And what is possible, you should be able to automate, you should, in the sense that it should help you, your business, and your employees. How to help the employee? We are using automation to help the employees. I want to know what is my max out date. Click, 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 you get to know what is the date that you are going to max out. How does it happen? You enter your all entry and exit. It calculates the number of days that you have stayed. At the end of the result, the system tells you you have so many days to max out. Now, if you are doing GC for planning purposes, you wanted to know how many days that he has stayed and what is the time period that is left out and what is the right time or the right strategy for you to initiate the GC. You do the same thing. You get to know the stay that you have completed and what is the period that allows to be stayed in your visa type that you are there. Then use that for your planning. Next is again what Meghna said, like eligibility, which is whether you have the basic checks, whether you have eligible for 1 year, then only the system should be allowing you to raise your request. And Oliver mentioned, or Rajesh mentioned on the business visa travel. What is the purpose of the visit? What is the dates of travel? And what are the previous travel history? Depending upon your company policy, the system should tell you that you have traveled most recently to this country and you have completed 30 days, 60 days, 45 days, 90 days, whatever it is as per your company policy. Then the system should not allow him to proceed further, and the system should tell you that you have most recently traveled and come back. And if you're planning to go back again without spending necessary time or over the required cooling off period, the system should tell him that there is a risk on compliance for you or your business, then please check with your managers, right? And then what is, I'll take 2 more minutes, is that fine? Yeah. So when it comes to the wage compliance, it is very important that you automate to the extent that you are sure that you are compliant on the wage compliance. When I say here wage compliance, if your petition salary is matching the actual payroll salary, which is equal or more, then you are compliant. So what you have to do is, or what we have been doing is take the full head count and mention the petition salary for each of the expat population in the system and get the data from the payroll team on the actual payroll data. Then the system says that you have 500 people and 500 people, 498 people you have met the compliance requirement, and these 2 remaining people that is left out. So I, as a function head here, I get once in a month a system report says 500 people, 498 compliant, 2 on red or amber. Then my team works with the CNB team and checks whether it is in order and then get back to the same. Now automation, again, with employee experience, we have to make it happen, right? So we have enabled the mobile app-based quarterly survey for employees to give all the immigration details for, not only for the employee, but also family in terms of their I-94 or petition validity dates, so that the system calculate and tell that, yes, this is in order and this needs a compliance attention, including the client that you're working for and the location that you're working for and the petition validity that you're looking for, right? And then the other critical thing that is there also on the effective date of the petition salary in case of an amendment or amendment cum extension that is filed and getting approved, basis your petition, then whether you are compliant on that. So your system, it is very, very important that if possible you should automate to the extent who all we have applied for extension or amendment or extension cum amendment, what is the filing date, what is the LCA start date and end date, and what is the approval date, and from what date you have to start the new petition salary that you need to give. Again, we have automated the system. The system tells that these are the 4 or 5 people whose petition has been approved and the effective dates has come in live, and then you do this, right? Again, I want to bring it on the LCA and public access folder. So in BirlaSoft, we are using Laborless. It's a wonderful tool. I would recommend and encourage people to, get to know more from Roman and see if you can use that. It clearly tells. So for example, in my mind, I'm very confident that we have Laborless. It ensures everything that the system can do that. The rest is on my responsibility that we are doing everything that the system tells, and we also do a sense check or complaints around that. Right? So my one statement, automate what is possible, what is making sense for you, and automate with the intention that the processes become easy and seamless, not only for your internal operations, but also for the employee experience. So in that, if possible, again, automate and make it a mobile-based application for anybody can raise any request for extension, fresh visa, or even transfer or anything else through a mobile app where the employee can raise the request anywhere, and also enable the business managers to be able to sitting at their seat wherever they are available, to be able to approve the request so that there is not much time for people to wait and open the laptop or log in and then approve. And most importantly, we are not losing any time on that. Thanks for the time. Thank you.
So really great points. And before we move on, I'm curious, raise of hands, how many people have all in-house software? I know a few people earlier said, all of the software you use, you've built in-house. Okay, And then I'm assuming for the rest of you, you're using vendors, is that correct, for case management, immigration management? Raise of hands? Okay, because if you're not raising your hands for one or the other, that means you're only doing paperwork, and I don't believe you. Okay, so the reason I wanted to ask that question was if you have your own in-house software, you have more control over what you can automate, what the product does, it's your product. It might be a different department, but make sure to do that. But for the people who use vendors, reach out to your vendors and ask them what capabilities do they have that you may not know about yet. For example, Excel is a tool that everyone uses, but we use 5% of it, 10% of it. If you've ever seen these YouTube videos, there are people who can make movies out of Excel. I mean, it's an incredible tool. So for whatever you're using, whether it's an immigration case management, a compliance, one of the tools that are here, talk to the team and ask them, what am I not doing? What am I missing that maybe you have that I'm not aware of? Because you could be sitting here thinking we should automate X, but we don't have the capabilities. That's only because you don't know that you have the capabilities, but your tool already has it. So just something for you to think about. Go and talk to your vendors, tell them what your goals are, and work with them. It's their job, or it's our job, right, to do that for you. So just a thought. But Ravi, thank you for the really nice transition, because what we wanted to talk about next is, U.S. immigration is a major topic, and probably everyone here does some or a lot of it. And we had wonderful panels earlier about the changes coming in with U.S. immigration, H-1B modernization rule, and the Trump administration, and Elon and Vivek talking about H-1Bs. We don't know what's going on. What we do know, I think, and most people would agree, is that compliance is going to be more important than ever with respect to the H-1B. So, everyone here does LCAs, H-1Bs, I'm assuming? Just a show of hands. Again, we're just doing a little exercise. Okay, so I'm going to ask the panelists, how do they deal with their LCA and PAF compliance process? What do you build for it? What technology? What process? And listen to them and really take some notes. And maybe there's something that they do that you all can share. So I guess we'll start back here, if you don't mind. Meghna.
Sure, Roman. Yes, of course. LCA, H-1B, LCAs are, I think, one of the key compliances to look at, and that's something that gets audited quite often as well, right? The penalties, the repercussions of non-compliances are quite high in that area, so I think that's a focal point for any mobility immigration person looking at the US region, right? Of course, we have a very clear automated process around how we manage our LCAs, its utilization, the compilation of the PAF forms, the postings that needs to be done, right? And very happy to and very proud to say that it's, of course, an in-house built tool. I'm from Wipro, we build everything in-house, so yeah. And it was quite a journey because smaller nuances of, let's say, within intended area of employment, postings of LCAs, right? That's not a new LCA. It's the existing LCA that needs to get reposted at a new location. So there are those little nuances that you have to take care of when you're looking at, maybe an external tool that's supporting you with your postings and PAFs, or if you're building an internal system that's going to support you, on your journey of complying with these LCA mandates. So yeah, that's been our journey. We've had a good flight with the in-house tool, a good technology development with very few touch points. It's helped us save a lot of, I think, back and forth transactions on a physical posting, because that's, you need to catch a person locally there, get approvals, post it, then, they have to timely send it back to you. There's a lot of time lost, right? So getting it automated, doing an e-posting, definitely saves a lot of time and effort. In turn, your cost, of course. The sooner you can deploy a person, the faster the billing for the business, right? So yeah, that's what it is.
So even we use the internal automation tool for all to manage LC as well as PAF compliance. But I would add one more point wherein, I was talking about the integration of systems earlier. So it becomes important, especially when there's a location changes which happens. It is very important for us to know, for the managers to update in the HR systems, and that information should flow into the immigration team. So that way, we manage the location changes, and then we decide whether an amendment needs to be filed and things like that. So I would see that we should, again, I'll stress upon that we should leverage internal tools for integrating with HR systems and ensure that we are compliant with all all the wages, or if there's a location change, an amendment needs to be filed, whatever needs to be done, that action needs to be taken immediately.
I'll just add a little point here. I think most of it was covered. Sorry? It's working? Yeah. So I just wanted to add one perspective, right? We have an excellent tool, like as I said, we have Laborless, and we've been using that, and we are extremely happy with that, and we are also confident that whatever we are doing, that is accurate, and we are confident that we are fully compliant. The point that I wanted to add here is that, so the tool will ensure from a technical compliance perspectives or immigration perspective that is required, right? And that is the thing that we have. But what I want to add here is, please take help from your attorneys or internal or external auditors, and have a process. If it is already there, then you follow that. Or if you don't have, invite some attention for some compliance on that process to get your processes audited with a sample or full or whatever, depending upon the requirement that you would want. So get it run through by the auditors and see what is their perspectives on the practical usage and files and accesses and ability to be able to demonstrate to your internal auditors or external auditors or company engaged or authorized auditors to be confident that you will be able to do the same thing in case of a DOL audit, where you will be able to come through success. Here, I want to say that there will be a lot of learning when you do that, auditors. From an auditor's perspective, they could bring in different perspectives, saying that you are doing this, maybe you are not doing this, or maybe you should be doing this, and this is not part of the the Department of Labor regulation perspectives. But in practical aspects where the attorneys would be familiar, they would say that, Ravi, you are doing all of this, but our recommendation would be to add 1, 2, 3 to this. And if you have it ready, it will be much more helpful for you to be able to demonstrate or feel confident about your processes. So work on the internal tools that you have or your external service providers, but still get it audited and you feel comfortable, and so that you can go back to the management and you can give the confidence back to the management that my record keeping or data or systems and reports on the LCA and PAF, we are 100% and we can be confident.
And I mean, usually I'm moderating. I want to add a few notes here just because this is actually where I do have some expertise. A few things for you all to think about. So first of all, I'm assuming a lot of people here have third-party work sites where you're placing some of your workers. And we all know that from a compliance aspect, that's always a challenge. That came up earlier today about third-party work sites. Sometimes these companies want nothing to do with your LCAs. Right? You're a company that's hiring H-1Bs. If you want to work with this third-party work site, you have to make a risk analysis. Do I want to continue working and sending my folks there and have this contract, but risk something happening where, you know, they're not posting the LCA or they don't have the public access file? Or do I tell my third-party client, which could be Google or Microsoft or Meta, you know, these big organizations, or do I tell them, no, you have to do this, and if you don't, we're pulling out our workers? I mean, that's a real decision that companies have to make. And so it's a risk analysis. Most of the time, the risk analysis says we're going to keep the business and we're going to do what we can to be compliant. Whether you have an internal tool or an outside tool, I really encourage you all to think about posting LCAs electronically, because it leaves a trail where you can be more confident and confidently show in an audit that you are posting correctly, you're for the correct amount of time, your folder has, the PAF has everything that you need in it. And so I think, and it's available immediately to an auditor that comes in or potentially somebody off the street. Whatever you have, create a process and make sure it's digital, because that will make audits easier. I was actually on a webinar a couple of weeks ago with somebody who works at, or used to work at USCIS, doing I-9 audits. So he worked on the government side doing I-9 audit litigation. And he told me that, listen, this is a very human process, right? These auditors come in and they're people, and if you are easy to work with, you have all the documentation ready, everything is nice and neat and digitized, they will be easier on you during the audit. They will be more friendly to you, etc. Be respectful to them and do as much as you can to make it easy. On the flip side, if everything you have is maybe messy, or you don't have a lot of information, or you're giving them a stack of paper instead of maybe something more digitized, and they're frustrated, it could, I mean, this is what he said, these are not my words, it could actually impact you negatively in some way from an audit perspective. So when you go back to your organizations, especially with the cap season kind of coming around soon, look at your H-1B compliance process and see if there's any place where you can digitize and automate based on what we were just saying. And because I'm here, come talk to me outside. I have my laborless booth, and if you want to know about LCA compliance automation, at least I can share a little bit about what we're doing. So wanted to mention that. Okay, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about something that's much more global. So a quick question again. Who here, I know everyone does, or most people do US immigration, assuming that other people do immigration to other parts of the world, raise your hand if you're sending employees to other parts of the world. Okay, so keep your hand up if localization is something that impacts your organization, like the requirement to hire people from the home country as well as foreign nationals. Yeah? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about now. So I wanted to ask my panel, and Oliver, I'll start with you because you've been quiet for the past 5 minutes. How do you balance localization with bringing foreign nationals over to various offices around the world?
All right. So nowadays, most countries are highly focused on getting, their local population, the unemployed population in the private sector to raise that percentage across the board. And if you start off with UAE, you have the Emiratization program, which is aiming at attaining 2% increase year on year of the Emirati population, which adds to the overall population. Then you have Bahrain, which is currently working on a draft law, which is looking, if when imposed, it will put a cap on the number of foreign workers of the total population at 30%. Then you have Qatar, who has already signed a law of nationalization of private sector jobs. And in case you are failing to meet the requirements, you can face imprisonment or fines up to 1 million riyals, which is huge. And then you have Saudi Arabia, which has one of the most complex programs, which is also known as Nitakat, where it's based on a quota system and a classification system which has platinum, high green, mid green, low green, and red. And in addition to that, you have 9 South Asian-based professions ranging from 15% to 70%. And if you have to meet your overall South Asian percentage, you have to meet all these percentages as well. And in addition to that, you also have 5 nationalities which have a cap on the quota from 1% to 40%. Now, that is Saudi. Now, moving on to Singapore, you have the Compass program, where in order to meet your requirements or to get application pass, applicant has to score 40%, of a score. Now, with so many localization requirements across the board, it becomes imperative for companies across to ensure that their mobility team is well aware of these requirements. They have to work closely with all the impacted functions internally and then adjust their systems to meet the requirements. So that's one way. And then, if you either need to have an in-house team which can support you, or then look at your vendors who can make this happen.
Just to add on that here, so localization or Southeastization or Emiratization, these are all the regulations, right? You don't have a choice, right? If you want to do business there, you must follow their regulation, right? We can tell that it is complicated, it is difficult, or it is making it, impossible for us to do it. But I just wanted to add 2 perspectives on here. One is, if you are not able to do this or you are not able to comply, because it may be a new geography that you are expanding or new country you want to try out, right? And maybe with very few numbers, as I'm assuming if you're starting it is with few numbers. Some of you may be aware, but there's a concept of employer on record services. There are companies who are specialists who are all providing the services of employer on records or UOR model, which is very popular in most of the countries. Again, there are still 1 or 2 countries where it is not still legal, but there are many list of countries where UOR model is supported and is possible and we can do it. From our company experience perspectives, yes, we do use UOR model for Singapore, we have used for New Zealand, we have used for Malaysia, and there are many other countries where you can use it, including the Middle East side. You can get this option. If there is a requirement and for you to move forward on that directions, you can explore as well, but there are legal requirements and mandatory guidance in terms of the contract agreements and the nature of deployment that you are going to do on an EOR model. And there, it is very important for the mobility professionals to clearly set the expectation with the employee who is going to be the assignee there, and also with the business leadership, your payroll team, your CNB team, and the business leadership, and also sign off or approvals from the CXOs if it is required, with making it more obvious and well-informed options for the business. You can explore that for us, starting new geography territory, you can do that. And this, of course, when you are doing it through a vendor or an AOR supported deployment, there will be cost involved for that. You need to be prepared for that. And again, if it is a successful model and these 4 or 5 people that you have sent, they are able to get more business, and then you need to expand at a 50, 100, or 150 time, then I'm sure there is a support and interest and investment readiness or preparedness from the leadership team to set up an office, to hire locals and promote this model is an option as well.
I want to ask a follow-up question to the panel. Have you ever made a strategic decision about where to expand or open up a new office or not because of localization requirements?
So you have the regional headquarters, Saudi Arabia came up with the requirement of having your headquarters in Riyadh, failing which there was a lot of immigration blockages which you could face. So while we already had an entity out there, we also have another RHQ set up out there. So it definitely helps if you want to get all the advantages and the leniency which the government is providing. And again, it depends on the EOR, again, depends on company to company on what model they want to follow. It's not a very easy process. It's pretty complex. It has its own challenges. It is workable, but if the numbers are small, if it's big, then it becomes very complex.
Yeah, I think, localization definitely is one of the checkpoints to look at if you're trying to establish or step into a new country, right, and try to set up business there. But I think what's more important, what Ravi brought up on the EOR, is to ensure that as mobility professionals, you have a say at the table when business is making these, model decisions, right, on whether you want to step in through as an EOR or you want to set up an entity. Right, it is very important to be at the table at that decision making so that there's a proper legal course taken around how you're going to manage the entire operations with respect to that. Otherwise, what happens is business goes ahead and they look at the short-term gain with an employee on record situation, and then they reach out and say, okay, guys, start sending visas or start getting people to do visas through this employee on record. But then you may have many parameters where you might not be able to operationalize it as effectively because your agreements, contracts, the nature of how you want to operationalize or do business through a visa or deployment program may not be well framed. Right? So I think it's at senior levels and leadership levels, it's important to have a voice at the table when these decisions are being made when you step into a new country as an organization.
Yeah, otherwise they come to you and say, well, we need you to do something yesterday, and you can't say no because the wheels are already turning. So, and also to the immigration lawyers in the room, be kind to them, because in those instances, that's when you call them and say, I need you to do this for me now. And of course, the best immigration lawyers will do it, but be kind, be gentle. Okay. So kind of the last question as we're wrapping up here, we wanted to talk about government audit short-term travel. So we're talking about business visas. Okay, so far we've talked about a variety of different things, but mostly I think the assumption is we're talking long-term relocations. But of course, probably even higher volume is short-term business trips and other sort of business travel. So I guess just another show of hands, because again, get the blood flowing and just trying to understand where everybody is in the room. Who here in your organization also sends people on short-term work assignments? Anywhere in the world? Okay, yeah, most of you. And that makes sense for a variety of different reasons. So I want to ask the panel, we have a variety of different organizations, different sizes. How do you manage compliance with short-term business travel, which is different, nuanced, but different from kind of long-term immigration? So I don't know, Ravi, do you want to start with that?
Sure. So, when you said you started with short-term business travel, then you also said about short-term work assignments, right? So So most of the organization does all of this, right? Short-term work assignments as well as short-term business travel. So again, these two are distinctly different, and it is also country-specific, and it is also rule-based or immigration requirements and country-specific perspectives on immigrations, right? I always believe that there are countries who are willing to keep the process and the systems, including the fees or fees waiver, etc., to be so very flexible that please come to my country, please come to my country, right? There are countries that are inviting, and there are countries that are putting limitations for various reasons, right? So we need to be very clear which country are we sending and how receptive is that country in terms of the short-term business travel as well as for the long-term or as well as short-term work assignments. It is very clear, we have the immigration attorney supporting us very clearly and guiding us thoroughly on short-term work permit options when it comes to the short-term work assignments. For Netherlands, you have short-term work assignments or short-term work permit. And for Malaysia, you have the PVP or professional visit pass. And there are also other countries that has the short-term visa, short-term work permit as an option and a model that is available very clearly. It is legally stated and it is derived from the immigration regulation. And such options are there. Those countries, when you are sending people on short-term assignments, you need to follow to the regulatory requirements for that particular visa options, the short-term work permit options and the country-specific regulations, and you can do that. So having said that, it is very clear that if there are countries that do not have the concept of short-term work assignments or short-term work permits, like for example, the US, you have L1 or H1. There were a time where there was something called B1 in lieu of H1B. Now it is a dead category or it is not there available, right? So there were times where the same US as a country was encouraging or promoting B1 in lieu of H1B, but they have abandoned that program. What does it tell very clearly is that you cannot send people for short-term work assignments on business visas. So what does it mean? It means that if your people are coming here for business meetings and discussions or engagements or deal signing or other negotiations perspectives, yes, you can use that. But anything else other than that, which involves live production work or system enhancement work or hands-on work, it is considered as work assignment, and hence you can send people only on work assignments. With the L1 is an option, with the H1B also is an option. But when you are sending people on H1B for short-term assignments, which is, let's say you are sending it for 45 days, 90 days, and 100 days, if it is a first-time traveler, it could be a challenge for them to get the SSN setup and the payroll setup, etc. If you are going only for 10 days, 15 days, then it may not be possible for you to do that and demonstrate and also comply with that. Right? The same goes for the L1 as well. It may not be possible for you to comply with that if the assignment is only for 15 days or 20 days or 30 days, and where you could not be able to set up the payroll and do the payroll transfer and then ensure compliance. That is an issue that you need to be cognizant of.
Thanks, Ravi. Ravi covered it pretty well in terms of how we manage business visas. So I strongly feel that we should decide there should be a demarcation whether it's a business visa or a work permit, right? Depending on what activities they do, and strictly no billing. So that way, I think we'll be ensuring we are compliant. And also, I was talking earlier that we need to go to an extent that how we can stop the timesheets, right? You can block the timesheets so that there won't be any billability. So that way, we would be managing the compliance part of it. And I don't know how many of you will get a kind of declaration from the employee as well as from the manager on the activities what they do. So that way, we are making them accountable. And then we are also managing compliance in a way. So it could be through the system or it could be manual, but this is something that we need to start thinking.
Yeah, just a point to add there. I think it's very important to ensure that you have well-defined policies, right, around your long-term, short-term business travels, whatever it is, as an organization that you want to, that you have an appetite for, right? But I think clear, documented, written policies on eligibility criteria, how you're going to run the payrolls, how you're going to do the per diems, or where the SSNs would sit, the COCs that needs to be taken care of. I think a procedural aspect of how you're going to operationalize your mobility programs I think is the key driver. Because otherwise, it's very easy to be non-compliant in this area, simply because many work visas mandate day one payroll, right? And you try to do a short-term program, and your short-term programs run on per diem, you probably will be running behind trying to fix that whole cycle of the taxation issues and other, non-compliances that you accrue. So I think a clear defined policy, alluding to the policy workshop that we had some time back, I think it's important to sort of have that clear lines of what duration would be called for on short terms and what would be called for on the, on the long terms.
Just to add to what Meghna mentioned, I think it's important for the mobility team to have regular awareness sessions with all the folks who are traveling with business to make sure of the regulatory requirements and what they can and what they can't do on a business visa or short-term travel. I think it's important.
And I wanted to add to that, in terms of billing the client for short-term business travel, thoughts, policies, yes, no?
We already had a discussion on this topic, and in my opinion, billing cannot be permitted on a business visa or short-term travel. That's my opinion.
Anybody else want to?
So it's a little gray area. What kind of billing? What do you construe as billing? So if the client picks up your travel and expenses and says, I pay for the accommodation of your business traveler, do you say that I will keep that aside from billing? I mean, that's still remuneration. That's money that you're taking from the client. How do you make the distinction? So if it's an efforts billing, okay, maybe yes, you keep it aside. But then these also are payouts that the client gives. There are no free lunches. That's what I was discussing with the group the other day. There are no free lunches. We are here for business. We charge the client for everything, right? So how do you make that thin line of distinction? So what is a comfortable threshold that you have to say, I will not do effort billing, but then I'm okay with the client paying for my travelers' tickets, accommodation, whatever it may be, per diems, that you would want to pay the person out for survival of that 10 days that they would be in that country. I don't know. For me, it's a little fine line of ethic. Would that not account to billing? Would that be what? Over and above the billing that the client is contracted with you? So, I mean, it's everybody's viewpoint on how they want to look at this, stuff. But I don't think you can strictly say no billing. There is going to be a little bit of remuneration that you pick up from the client when you send people out. I mean, that's business.
Well, just to add to that and to counter what Meghna is saying, just for the fun of it, okay? So it all depends on the contract with the client, what you have. It's very, very important out there. And you may not face any challenges right now, but when there's an audit at the client side, and when the immigration authorities start looking at all the visas which have been coming in, and they counter-check all the billings and all the stuff which happens, and we have heard of such cases, that is when, the shit hits the roof. So it's better to be safe than sorry. That's my thought.
So I agree with some of it and definitely not with some of it. Having said that, my role or expectation from my leadership, right, is that they should be confident in saying that we are compliant, right? So then how will I support in ensuring that is to be able to demonstrate that I am compliant, right? Now, how do I demonstrate that I am compliant, right? So where there is work, there is clearly billing, right? So where there is business meetings, if there is billing, then what is it? Then what is it for, right? We may not be able to demonstrate, right? So for all practical purposes, right, we are all mobility professionals doing our day's job and ensuring whatever best that we are doing, and we can do it in our overall interest of the organization, right? But we also are accountable for the overall compliance confidence from the leadership. So how does the leadership get the compliance confidence, right? It is either through the internal audits, through our other quality or risk committees or compliance team within the corporate, or company engaged external auditors, or legal or statutory auditors, right? If we are confident whatever we are doing on compliance is perfectly acceptable, but if the auditor who is auditing you, right, whether it is company initiated or legal auditors or statutory auditors, in their eyes, they feel that your records indicate that there has been billing on business visa, it could be a compliance risk for you, then in that meeting or compliance review or audit review meeting, you may not be able to clearly establish that you are fully compliant. So for that, what can help you is only your records and systems, right? Like the compliance declaration that Rajesh mentioned, right? And the declaration from the business, and also the visa request that is formally given by the applicants at the time of applying for the visas, right? If he's saying that I'm going for business meetings and discussions or quarterly review or half-yearly review or quarterly business review meeting, etc., then you have allowed them for such travel, and then you have the records to also say that there is no billing or effort or billing for that, then it is most likely that you will pass your internal or external auditors. I think our role is very essential in the eyes of the statutory authorities or the immigration authorities or the tax, tax experts or tax notice, or if you are to manage that. Then if you are able to clearly convince them and demonstrate, I think that is when the compliance piece or the satisfaction from the management that, yes, my mobility team is doing a great job, they will ensure that I'm not getting into any issue with business visa related compliance. I think that is when our targets are achieved. So that is my perspective. Thank you.
So we're gonna end with just a fun little moment here. I just wanted to say thank you for everybody, and if we can wrap this up in one word, when you go back home or go back to the office tomorrow, take a look at your compliance processes, see where you can automate, and if you do work with vendors or in-house teams, push them to ask for more, to automate more, and to work with you. So that's all I wanted you to take away, and then please.
Yeah. So it's time for me to ask you guys questions and a little bit of trivia and fun. So how many free zones are there in the world? Some of you who have attended my last conference are aware of it, but anyone who can answer this question. How many free zones are there in the world? Okay. As of today, there are more than, how many? How many free zones? So as of today, there are more than 4,500 around the world designated as free zones, located in more than 135 countries. The first free zone was established in 1959 in Shannon, Ireland. Brendan O'Regan was an Irish businessman, played an important role in development of both the airport in Shannon and the free zone. He's also known for establishing the first duty-free shop in the world. Okay, next one. Which, it is interesting, and I was amazed by this as well. Which country requires horses, ponies, mules, and zebras to have a passport? Anyone? Nope. Nope. It's UK. What is the name of the immigrant who opened the first fish and chips shop in UK? All right, it's Joseph Malin. Later combined the two. He had two shops, opening the UK's first fish and chip shop around 1860. He was a Jew who came to London East End from Eastern Europe. Okay, this one is the easy one. Which country has the most number of pyramids? Pyramids.
Mexico.
Nope. Nope. It's Sudan. Sudan has 220 extant pyramids, whereas Egypt has only 138. This is a wild one. What is the old name of Saudi Arabia? It is the United States recognized the kingdom of Hejaz and Najd and its dependencies on May 1st, 1931, when the US minister at London, Charles D. Dawes, conveyed this information to the Hejazi minister, and this was later changed to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in September 18, 1932. Which country in the Middle East is known as the Oasis of Peace? Anyone? I'm sorry? Nope. 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 It is Oman. It is one of the safest countries in the world and is known as the Oasis of Peace. The crime rate in the country is virtually zero. And the last one for you guys is, what is the nickname of UAE? Nickname of UAE? Anyone? Okay, it's known as Little Sparta. It is known as Little Sparta, a nickname that was given by the former United States Marine Corps General and Secretary of Defense James Mattis due to the active and effective military role and power projection in the surrounding region compared to the relative size. So that's all. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent panel, and thank you for the education on compliance, probably the core issue of everything here today.
Any of these questions. Only I could